Okay, hold on. Here we go. This is me and my photo, and I do in fact take pictures. I have taken pictures for as long as I can remember. I got my dad's camera from World War II, and I started using that in high school. This is one of my earliest ones. I was experimenting to see what would happen if I put a set of candles in front of a mirror in the dark and see if I could take pictures. Well, that's what happened. This is another one that I enjoy. This is my dad's hand. He's age 94, I'm age 52, and that's my hand. So I take pictures of things that appeal to me. There are some landscapes that just, look at that blue. Wow, that's strange. Or here we have snow clouds coming over, and they're going to dump more snow on Mount Shasta. I like seeing patterns in the world. Here are patterns made by tables and shadows. And here's a little caterpillar that was on one of those tables. Glasses, always beautiful. The inside of a basket with the sun shining through it. Yeah, I know. I take strange pictures, don't I? This one is titled Two Perfect Mangoes. This one doesn't have a title, but that is not soft sand. That is hardened sand. And I don't know how it ended up that way, but that's the Pacific Ocean. And this is just a little pond in one of our local parks, but I love the flow, the colors, everything about this picture. I just really, really enjoy. One of my favorites. I took a walk. Someone was brushing off their feet, and wow, what neat shadows. Shadows and silhouettes and lines are things that I tend to gravitate towards in all of my work. This is a silhouette of my husband sitting watching the ocean, and I just really like the way that looks. Here is the same ocean, but on a very quiet day, quiet side of the island. And here we go with a sunset. A lot of times I just happen upon something like this and I see it and I take a picture of it. This is at night in a little bay of the ocean, and those are just the lights from the downtown. I was walking along and I found this. Now, this is a very old photo. This is probably from, the 70s or 80s, but I scanned it in and now we have it. This is a fairly new photo. We went to Hawaii in the 2000s a couple times. Here is on a boardwalk on the beach, and you notice the footprints. A lot of what I do with a camera is I try to bring people's attention to stuff that they don't normally see. You might walk right by and not even notice those little bird prints or those little eggs. But if you're looking for them, you might see them. And there you are. I remind you to look for eggs when you're out walking on the gravel. Here we have the perspective. This is a sunset perspective, and you'll notice that the shadows are very long, even though the things causing the shadows are very short. That's how you know the sun is really far down there. Every morning when we're in Hawaii, we walk on the beach and have sunrise. So the sun rises behind us and comes up over the hill, and there it is. And for just a few moments, you can get shadows of a grain of sand. So what this image is, a wave comes in, and when it turns around, it goes back out, it leaves a little tiny ridge. It's about 2 or 3 sand grains tall. And the upper arc is a wave that did that. The line on the left is a wave that did that. And the line on the right is the most recent wave that has done that. But look at the shadows on that thing. Those are so short and so wonderful. Sometimes I see things that are just, well, oddities to me. This was my looking at something when they were going to, well, be testing my eyes. And isn't that complex? Sometimes it's a matter of perspective. You get down on the ground and on the driveway, and there's that snail. Well, sometimes it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time. We were visiting some friends and taking pictures of her cat. And I said, oh, can we get some more light in here? And so we turned those blinds, and that was the first time she'd ever seen those. And look at those eyes. And that's her partner. This was the other kitty that we were taking pictures of that time. I really like close-ups or unusual shots. This is the night light that we leave on in our house on the right, and on the left is the door into the bedroom hall and into the bathroom. But I just love the way that that's little tiny bits in a huge expanse of darkness. Or in this case, put my glasses down on a piece of watercolor paper when I was painting at the watercolor class, and that was the shadows. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes I just see things, I like it, I take a picture. Other times I see things and I get inspired to set up a picture. So this is a seed head with one little seed pulled out of it, and then an unripe one sitting next to it. That's the green thing. And it's on a mirror. So what you're seeing there is totally made up, but yet totally natural. Here I took a mirror, went outside and put one leaf on the mirror, and there's the sky above and beyond. That's an oak leaf, by the way, and those are oak galls, those little pink things up there. Perspective is an interesting thing. Here I am sitting down, those are my feet and my hands, but that's not the relative proportion. Perspective also comes into play when I'm looking at things. This is a house that my great-grandfather built. And when I was back east in 2003, I got a chance to take a picture of it. And then it was torn down 2 years later. So Grandpa made that, great-grandpa made that. Sometimes you look at something and then you go, oh, what's this? This is looking up, straight up a wall at the Turnverein in Sacramento. Here's some more looking straight up those skyscrapers and parking lots and things in Sacramento. And here's looking up a pole. That's kind of weird. So I take unusual photos. And sometimes I'll take those photos and then I will mess with them on the computer. So here we go, messed with. Yeah. A photo. Oh, nice poppies. Messed with. Yeah. So I have a lot of flowers that I've manipulated. These are Philadelphus flowers, and that became the basis for several different ones. This is a Matilaha poppy, more Philadelphus. That's close to natural, but not quite. It's been messed with a little bit. That's been messed with a lot. Same picture. And then I liked this so much that I made a haiga out of it. Haiga is a composite art form where you take 3 lines like you were making a haiku, and you add an image which changes the message. And so this is my haiga. More flowers. This one is called August Rain, and I don't know if you know, but when we live in Davis, we don't have any rain from about, April through October, something like that. So any rain that you're going to see is going to be sprinklers. So this happened to be a sprinkler head shooting up a stream of water behind those Nigella seeds. I just really like that. This is actually the first one of my pictures that ever won an award. It was at the Dixon Mayfair many, 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 many years ago. Matilaha poppy, tomatoes messed with, a butylon, lovely cactus flowers. This is a huge cactus, maybe 10 feet tall. More poppies, more poppies. And then the inside of that same poppy messed with twice. Sometimes I don't even bother with the photograph. I just go onto the computer directly and just create digital art. So this is a Photoshop creation that I made. Here's another one. Sometimes I think I'll see something in there. Could that be a face? And I'll manipulate it a little more. And so I made an ATC called Don't Be Blue. Sometimes I make things and they're for other purposes. This is the logo that I made for the Yolo County Women's History Month. And they use that on their letterhead. I'm very proud of that one. The Blue Ridge in the back is what we see from Davis if we look towards the west. I have done some painting, and this was acrylic painting early on. This was acrylic painting, not quite so early, but still early on. If you look at the blue and pink in the background, that was its own picture before I decided to make it a background. And so then I added my duck. This is called Pond, Sweet Pond, because obviously this is his first pond. And you give a duck a pond, and that's a boy duck, by the way. You give him a pond, what's he going to do? Well, if he's married, he's going to remodel. And if he's single, he's going to start fantasizing about who he can get to come over. So there's his little fantasy. This is called duck dreaming. I also tried to paint a few other birds. Here's a yellow-headed blackbird in courting pose. And then I've done other things besides painting. This is tissue paper collage. There's an art group that meets Friday mornings at the Davis Senior Center, and they do watercolor. It's a watercolor class, but every once in a while they'll do something different. And this was one of the different ones. In 2010, I was the featured artist at the Yolo County Fair, and that was a lot of fun. I'm going to go turn off that noise. Be right back. And before I went to the fair and set up, because I got to set up a bunch of things, what I did is I hung up all the pictures that I liked in my house. Here's a bunch of them here. And I put little pieces of paper next to each one, invited my friends over, and gave each person stickies, little dots, and they could put their dots on any of the things that they liked. And so they chose for me their favorites so that I could then go to the county fair and hang them up. And there it is. So those were, some were my favorites and some were, other people said, oh, that's really good. So other things that I do are set designs or displays. So I've done stage sets for various concerts. And this is a display that I did with the Davis Senior Center. And they had one summer, somebody called me up and said, Lois, we don't have anything on the case. Could you put something up for August? And so I did Vacation at the Beach, or in fact, Under the Beach. And so here's my take of what things might look like. And I don't know if you can tell from this picture, but the glass shelves that the fish are sitting on, the shells are on up there, it's angled, it's not straight. Drove people crazy. It was wonderful. When my mom lost much of her vision and she came back down to live in Yolo County again, and so that I could be her eyes, it was a very, very tough time. It was stressful, and I didn't have much interest or energy in artwork. But a friend of mine invited me over to do mosaics. And she said, when you're done with your mom in Woodland, just drive over here. She had a studio out in the country. Drive over here, spend a couple hours and just relax and play. And she had all the stuff. I didn't have to bring anything. I didn't have to remember anything. I didn't have to follow any instructions. So this was the very first mosaic I ever made. Thank you, Donna. And unfortunately, I didn't realize that I was putting it onto a piece of concrete that was so heavy, you couldn't pick it up and put it on the wall. I can't even pick the thing up myself. I have to have two people pick that up. And I was bemoaning that fact. And then they said, oh, well, we have these concrete boards. So here's a 1x2 concrete board. You can do a hanging wall panel with that. So this is the second mosaic I ever did. And if you'll notice, it's the same materials in both. And then this is the third one. So there I have a table and 2 wall hangings. I never actually finished the table by putting a wood frame around it or anything, but I was very, very pleased. And I went on and did more mosaics while Mom was the last 5 years of Mom's life. So I did a bunch of things. During part of that time, I was pretty depressed. And this came out of that. The shattered glass in the middle was a mosaic that I worked on for a long time while taking care of Mom. And then after she passed on, she was 98 at the time. And I was feeling a little better. And I realized, you know, I really should finish that thing, but I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't depressed anymore. So I put a border around it and I titled it, Remembering the Dark Times. That's my mosaic. Here it is where I'm working on it, bringing it home. When I had a show, I'm part of the Creative Women's Center, we had a show, I made this little box and it's how to make a mosaic. And so I laid it all out on a table and had all the ways you do it. You get the tesserae, that's the bits, and you put them down and you glue them down, and then you grout it by putting the grout between the bits so it fills in those spaces. And there's a traditional mosaic method. Of course, I'm not really a traditional artist. So for me, I skipped bits. Like this one, I did the adhering the tiles to the background, but I never grouted it because this is what I wanted to say. It's very minimalist, I guess you'd say. Here's another one where I did a mosaic, but it's not glued down at all. I had taken a sheet of clay and cut out the various designs like a jigsaw puzzle. Then I painted them with the glaze and fired them, and I ended up with a jigsaw puzzle mosaic. So again, don't have to do everything that's required. So here's one where you can't see the adhesive and it's not grouted. It is in fact glued down, but it's, I call it a mosaic, but I'm not sure if a purist would actually say it is. Here's another one. This is a purist mosaic. And that again was done while Mom was around. And I worked on that all winter, one winter. It was every time I needed a break, I'd simply go out in the garage and I'd work on it some more. Got cold, but had a good time. Sometimes I don't even go so far as putting the bits in. So here we have I still am going to call it a mosaic, but what I did was I used the adhesive and I drew lines with it. Then I grouted it, that's the brown on it. And then at the end, I sandpapered off the tops of the white bits. And so what you're seeing here is grout and adhesive, but I still call it a mosaic. Here's some more in a similar way, not quite as dramatic. And when I did a show, I had all these outline out there, and I also did, there's another, the green tile's another one. And then I also did drawings where I would simply take the clay, make a flat thing, and put white glaze on it and carve away the glaze to have a drawing, and then fire it all. So I've been doing a lot of things. Here's another one, another set, I should say. When I did a show at one point, I had all these little tiny broken bits, little leftover bits, and they're magnets. On most of those, I put magnet on the back. There's a couple that are pendants, but in 2016, I did a retrospective show, a show of Lois, the life of Lois in art. And it was in a hangar. The art gallery up there is Gallery 94B, and it's in a hangar. It's huge. You can see these tables. I have like 3 tables lined up down the middle and all the way to the back. And it was wonderful. I have been doing something I enjoy, which is embossed aluminum. Now, this is the more extreme variety where it's all crinkled and crumpled and things. one of the bigger pieces. The aluminum is in small strips. The widest I've ever found is 3 inches wide. This is stuff you get at the hardware store. And so this one had to be patched. There are 4 stripes across it because that's the size that I had of the aluminum. Here's a smaller one. Here are some that I did on cards. And you can see, you don't have to crumple it. You can just draw on it. Here's one. This is a pin that I made. Here's a landscape painting. Again, embossed aluminum, and then just the black part is acrylic paint that I've applied. Here are some of the magnets and pins and things like that. And then there's a couple of cards in there. I also started drawing back in 2005, I guess, or maybe 6. My cat climbed in my lap, and I was a photographer. I didn't have a camera. She was cute. And so I ended up having to try and sketch it so that Jim would believe me, because her position was so strange. All right, this is the hanger. It's half a hanger, and then there's another gallery in front. And so all of that stuff is stuff that I did. Lots and lots and lots of stuff that I did. This was the front part of that same show. And I'm going to, from left to right, say the top one is an extreme watercolor. Yes, that is watercolor, black and white. The one below that is acrylic. No, it's not. It's pastel on paper. And the bird with the yellow head on the top is a painting, an acrylic painting. The bird with the yellow head on the bottom is a block print that I made because why not? The one in the middle, the eggs, that one was done when I lost all my brushes on the way to the class. It was in Sacramento, and I had put it on the roof and they all fell off. And so the instructor said, here, use this, and handed me a sponge. And so that entire painting is done with sponge. It was very strange. Anyway, let's keep going. Here's some more things, more embossed aluminum, clay work, a bunch of things. The one in the middle at the top is one of my more depressed times things. It's a watercolor. The one immediately to the left that you can only see half of is even more hard. That's a nightmare that I used to have as a kid. But when I went to the Friday morning class, occasionally there would be tasks or challenges, or the class would be about something. This class was about shadows and reflections. And so we were supposed to take an egg or a fake egg and put it on a white piece of paper, and then with watercolor, try and recreate what you saw. So this is my egg and my attempt at seeing what I saw. Again, in that Friday morning class, we had a technique that we tried, and this one, these trees, that's actually one of the first watercolors I ever sold. I was quite astonished when somebody wanted to buy it. This is that extreme. So in the watercolor class, the challenge for that day was only use one color and it's black. Oh, okay. So you would draw with pencil and then watercolor with the black. And that's what came out. And I've had a lot of people walk up to that and say, oh, it's a block print. And I'm going, no, it's a watercolor. Oh, but it looks like a block print. And I'm thinking, well, I like the way it looks. So if a block print looks like that, maybe I should learn how to do block prints. So I took a class in block prints, and that little card there is a block print that I made. Okay, other things that I've done. A lot of these things happen because I will meet someone and go to a class or a workshop or an escape day or whatever. And on one of those days, we were painting boards and then going to, I think she was going to have us put flowers in with the wires, but I was pretty slow and I didn't get finished. So I came home and I did it on my own, and I wrote a word with wires, and I was so astonished. My goodness, look at that. And there's another one. Live now. well, hey, if I can make words with wire, I should be able to do most anything with wire. And so I started doing a lot of bent wire things. Some were pendants, some were just tchotchkes, all sorts of stuff. And there's a bunch that I had. This is at the uh, St. James Craft Fair. It's a holiday craft fair. And the Creative Women's Circle used to go as a group. And so we'd all share one booth. And as I got more stuff, I ended up going on my own. So 2014, 2015, 2016, that era is when I was there. Here are some of the wire pendants. And then I was at that booth, and across the way, there was a lady who made hacky sacks. Her name happened to be Lois. And I went over, and she had a couple solid colored ones left. And so she was selling them cheap, and sure, I'll buy those. And then I went back to where I was sitting and waiting for people to come. And I took out my wire and I started making things, and I made a critter. I went back and I showed it to Lois, and she got all excited. And understand, this is in the fall. And so she kept making hacky sacks and dropping them off at my house so that I would make more critters. So here are some of the critters that I made. The next year at St. James, we did a joint thing where we made sure that our booths were side by side. And then out in the middle between our booths, we put up the critters for sale. So her hacky sack and my wire. I did get a commission on this one. I had a friend who said, a friend of mine is getting married and she wants to have a bride and a groom critter because she loves your critters. So here we have the bride all in white and the groom with black on the bottom. I like those. I also edit. I've edited a few books. And so when I had my show at the airport, at the Gallery 94B, I had my books there. And here were some of the books I edited. And some of the clay work that I did when I was in college, really old stuff. More recently, I've been doing encaustic. Encaustic is a wonderful, wonderful medium. It is melted wax and a resin. It's a tree bark resin and pigmentation. And so you've probably done this if you have kids with candles and crayons and you melt them and then that's your thing. Well, they melt at a very low temperature. So if you had that in your house in Davis when it got over 100, it would. Whereas this stuff, because it has that red resin in it, encaustic doesn't melt that quickly. And so you can have encaustics that last a long time. One of the things you might see in there are little tiny things, and those are artist trading cards. I'll tell you more about those later, but back to the encaustic. So encaustic, you've got melted wax with pigment in it. So you have pots, hot pots of color, and you can drizzle them and you can paint them and you can pour them, and you can do all sorts of stuff with them. And once you've made some layers, you can even scrape off bits. So you see where the white is shiny white, that's where it got scraped off. And the red, that's dark red, I made drops of that. And then later on, I shaved it off. So this is that piece before it got scraped. So you can see, like, look in the upper left-hand corner, you see those fuzzy white blobs, but when they're scraped off, they're red and they're green and they're dark. So it's one technique. You can use all sorts of techniques. This one was sort of a dropping it from the air kind of thing. I love the splatter marks. And if you get close up on that, that's a huge painting. But if you get close up on that, you can see those splatter marks, just lovely. Here's another one that was scraped to show the underneath layers. And you don't have to do encaustic on thick things. Here it is. I took a drawing that I had made. This was a computer drawing that I had made, and I printed it on a piece of paper. And then I took an iron and some of that encaustic material, and I would put the encaustic material on the iron where it would melt, of course, and then drag it across the paper. So it's very thin. When you're done, that paper is still flexible. not like the other encaustics where it's so thick that if you tried to bend it, it would crack. Anyway, encaustic's a lovely medium. Here is one class's work. And oops, you see the little ones there, the ones with the little diagonal things? That size and shape, 2.5 by 3.5, is an artist trading card, ATC. I learned about these back in 2005, and I had a wonderful time. I still do enjoy them, and I've made a bunch. Some I make on the computer using my photography. This one is made, it's a white cardstock that I punched holes in with a paper punch, one of those, rectangular paper punches. This one is that embossed aluminum. And so I made small pieces and put them on a cardstock, and there we have it. Since at that time, the only embossed aluminum tape for embossing that I could find was 2 inches wide. So that's why they're on black cards. Here's a close-up of one. And then sometimes I just draw. So this is a sketch that I did on the computer. There's a program called Sketchpad, which I really enjoy. And then I, on the computer, put it on a black background. So this is not a paper card, and I would never print it because it would be a waste of ink, but it's an image on my computer. This one is an actual drawing. I took a piece of black paper, and then with gold or copper and silver pens, I drew on it. So that's all hand drawn, single line, nothing's messed up with it. This one is what started it all. My Katie, or the day it started it all, when my Katie got sleeping in my lap and I didn't have a camera and I tried to draw her. It was so bad that I scanned it into the computer and then I redrew the lines in the computer. This was the original, and the feet were so bad that I just put socks on when I redrew it. And I've used Katie's image in a lot of things. I've made cards. This is a card. When I use that sketch pad, I can sketch almost anything, including kittens. I like to sketch kittens. So here I am. That lower portion was sketched in Sketchpad, and I used that for my Facebook background for a while. There's my phone number. If you want to reach me, you can just write that down and call me later. And then we get to 2017. Now, my mom passed away in 2014. I started getting creative again, doing a bunch of stuff. And then in 2017, I discovered poured acrylics. This is where you thin down your acrylic until it's fluid, and then you pour it. Well, I tried that very late in 2017, and I wasn't real happy. So I created a new method that I was using. I call this swiped acrylics. And I started painting swiped acrylic landscapes, abstracts, whatever, and teaching classes in it. So here are some of the earliest ones. This is probably my favorite. This is called Creating Loihi. Loihi is the Hawaiian island that is going to be formed off the tip of the Big Island, because the Hawaiian island chain is formed as the crust shifts and the land moves away from the hot spot that's underneath the ocean. So when you have lava coming up from under the ocean and it's in the water, it's very explosive. So this is my interpretation of an underwater eruption. This is the tree trunks of a ghost forest. Again, I'm just playing. I'm just having a good time. Many are abstracts. Some are landscapes. I did a show at the Davis Senior Center in 2019, I think. No, 2018. And these were some of the images. And went all the way down the hall. I was the artist of the month. Wasn't that cool? That's me, by the way, just in case you're wondering whose voice you've been listening to. So here's another one. I like this a lot. I call this abstract the meeting, because it seems like maybe they're out in space and there's two different cultures about to encounter each other. A lot of them I don't have names for, and I let people decide what they see in there. This one has a bunch of different techniques in it that I really like. Not too big. That one also not too big. That one's my favorite. That one's not, those two are not going anywhere. Those are mine. They're in my house. You walk in the front door, the first thing you see are those two. This is quite a large one, and it was my first galaxy. I liked it. This has gold in it. It doesn't show up well in a picture, but if you're in real personal life, you get to see the gold glitter. Many abstracts, some landscapes. This is a tiny one. This is the cover of a slide box. I don't know if you're scientific, but if you've ever dealt with slides, they come in these lovely wooden boxes that are maybe, 2.5 inches wide and 5 inches tall, something like that. Nice. I don't think I'm going to tell you how this came to be. It's a good story, but it takes too long. Here's my other galaxy. And this is probably the most appreciated painting of my current group. It's called Over and Under Landscape. And if you think about it, we're here right on the surface of the earth, but we're not down underground. We can't see what's going on down there. And overhead, the sky, it's clouds, it's blue sky. There's nothing we can do about that. Well, there is, but not to the good. And so remembering that we're in a shallow place is what I wanted to get across with this one. This one actually had a purpose. So Over and Under Landscape, and that one won an award too. Here is some strange little fluid acrylic pieces that I made. When I taught class, I'd teach people how to do it by painting CDs. And, they're small, they're round, they're easy, they're cheap. It was lots of fun. And I really hope to get back into doing art classes again. Speaking of art classes, if you are interested in joining me once I'm back out in the world or having people into my house, feel free to give me a call or give me a text. That's me. I'm tidying up the edges on a class that I did a class in swiped acrylics with. This is another class where we were doing CDs. And this is how you do it. You make a lot of different lines of color on the CD, and then you drag across it. You pull all that. You pull one paint over top of another, over top of another. You've run out of the first color. Now you're on the second or third color. And as you move, you get all these cells and lacing and things like that. It's fun. This is the output for one. I don't know if that was a week or a month. I was pretty prolific for a while there. So that might be a week. Yeah. Anyway, this was the front room of that Gallery 94B, which had the back room that's the half a hanger. And so here are my pictures. Here are my shows. This is a time that I did a booth over at the Davis Craft and Vintage Fair. Also lots of fun. And in the back, you can see a bunch of the volcanic eruption series that I did. And this is the Whole Earth Festival booth from 2019. I had so much fun. Didn't do a lot of sales, but then I didn't expect to because it was a fair rather than being an art gallery. But a lot of people came by, a lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of people asked me, how did you do that? And so I had a real good time. So this is me, Lois Richter, artist, radio show host, ATC enthusiast, teacher, kitten petter. Yep, that's me, all right. Lois. Thanks for listening.